The Galactic Council killed the human diplomat in front of 71 species, 71 thrones, 71 civilizations, and not one of them asked the question that mattered. Why did she come alone? She came unarmed, unshielded, with nothing but words and a species that refuses to stay down. They thought it was desperation. They thought it was submission. They thought she was a messenger, expendable, replaceable, forgettable. They were wrong. She was a keystone. And a keystone, when it falls, does not fall alone. The plasma bolt didn't miss. It wasn't meant to. High Chancellor Varys of the Galactic Council watched the human crumple to the marble floor and felt for the first time in 1,000 years at peace. The diplomat's name was Elena Soreth. She had been sent to speak for Earth. She had been given 1 hour. She lasted 4 minutes. The chamber did not erupt. That was the terrible thing. The council did not gasp, did not recoil, did not reach for the protocols of outrage their own laws demanded. They simply watched. 71 species, 71 thrones, and not one of them looked away as the blood pooled beneath a woman who had come unarmed, unshielded, and alone. They thought they had won. The Galactic Council had ruled on humanity's fate. They had ruled, and the universe had always obeyed. "We have been merciful," Varys said, stepping down from his dais, his voice carrying the weight of a species that had outlived 100 others. "We gave the humans a seat at our table. We offered them our laws, our order, our protection." And how did they answer? He gestured to the body. They answered with defiance, with pride, with the arrogance of a species that believes it is special. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Approval. The council had feared one thing above all, that the humans would convince them, that their strange, stubborn, impossible hope would spread like a contagion through the halls of power. But now there was no diplomat to convince anyone. Now there was only a corpse, and the vote it had made so simple. "We are not barbarians," Varys said. "We did not come to wage war. We came to correct an error." They thought they were correcting an error. The chamber returned to its rhythm. Secretaries filed the verdict. Clerks logged the species designation, extinct, pending execution. Somewhere in the upper galleries, an ambassador quietly ordered his ship to leave the system before the sentence could be carried out. Varys returned to his throne. He lifted his chalice. It was a small ritual, an old one, older than the council itself. He drank. The screens did not flicker. The comms did not go dead. The council's own intelligence, the greatest surveillance web in known space, reported nothing. Earth, light years away, had not moved, had not launched, had not even breathed differently. That was the thing they never learned about humans. In the silence, they read surrender. They were wrong. For the humans, silence was not defeat. Silence was preparation. The council had killed the wrong thing that day. They believed they had executed a diplomat. In truth, they had killed a keystone, the one living heartbeat that held a chain of ancient promises in place. And a keystone, when it falls, does not fall alone. The chamber settled. Varys set down his chalice, satisfied. The universe once again made sense. There was only one thing the Galactic Council had never considered: what the humans would do next. Humanity's file was thin. That was the first thing the Council's analysts had noticed, and the last thing they had ever questioned. 71 species sat in that chamber. 71 civilizations with histories carved in stone, in light, in the bones of conquered worlds. And the humans? The humans had a file so thin it barely qualified as a species at all. A single star system, a handful of planets, a history measured in thousands of years, not millions. A blink, a hiccup, a footnote that had somehow grown legs and started walking into their galaxy uninvited. "We studied them," the analyst intoned, her voice flat, mechanical, certain. "Their weapons are primitive. Their shields are non-existent. Their military doctrine, such as it is, relies on numbers, on sacrifice, on the assumption that they can absorb losses no other species would tolerate." She paused. The council leaned forward. "Earth has no fleet to speak of, no allies, no reserves. They are divided among themselves, hundreds of nations, hundreds of faiths, hundreds of squabbling factions that cannot agree on anything except that they matter. A ripple of derisive laughter. It was the sound of a species that had never once been wrong, and therefore had never once learned. They thought humanity was weak. They were not wrong. They were incomplete, and that was the error, not the intelligence. The intelligence was flawless. Every fact was true. Earth was divided. Earth was primitive. Earth was light years away from anything that could threaten the Council's order. What the analysts had never asked was why a Keystone walks alone. Elena Sorath had not been sent to the Council as a messenger. Messengers can be replaced. Messengers can be recalled. She had been sent as a Keystone, the one living point of contact, holding a chain of ancient promises in place. A monitoring pulse, wired to something far older than the Galactic Council, something Earth had built in the quiet, in the dark, in the centuries when no one was watching. The Council had seen a diplomat. The Council had executed a diplomat. The Council had never once considered that the human they killed was a key. The screens did not flicker. The comms did not go dead. That was the terrible, beautiful irony of it. The Council's own surveillance web, the greatest intelligence network in known space, reported absolutely nothing. No movement from Earth, no launch, no signal, no breath. The analysts read it as surrender. The Council read it as fear. Varys read it as vindication. They were all reading the same silence, and every single one of them was wrong. Because for humans, silence was never defeat. Silence was the loading of a weapon. Silence was a held breath before the storm. And somewhere, light years away, in a facility no map would ever admit existed, a single light had begun to blink. Not red, not blue, but a color no human had ever needed to name, because no human had ever expected to see it again. In the upper galleries, a young aide named Krell, barely old enough to hold a staff position, noticed something. It was small. It was nothing. A junior analyst's terminal, cycling to a file it had no authorization to open. Krell watched it for a moment. Then he looked away. It meant nothing. The Council was thorough. The Council was safe. The Council had ruled, and the universe had always obeyed. He never learned what was on that screen. He never would. Because at that exact moment, in the same instant, across every star system humanity had ever touched, from the smoking ruins of dead worlds to the quiet facility that had just blinked awake, a single heartbeat flatlined. It did not slow. It did not waver. It simply stopped, and in the Council chamber, High Chancellor Varys lifted his chalice, drank, and smiled. What the Council did not know, because no alien had ever lived to learn it, was that Earth did not negotiate. The heartbeat did not slow. It did not waver. It simply stopped. For one full second, nothing happened. The Council chamber hummed with its usual self-satisfied murmur. Varys drank. The analysts filed their verdicts. Krell looked away from the forbidden terminal and forgot it entirely. And then, in a facility no map would ever admit existed, light years away, the light that had been blinking turned solid. It did not turn red. It did not turn blue. It turned the color of memory, the color of a promise made so long ago that even the species that made it had half forgotten what it meant. But the machines had not forgotten. Machines do not forget. Machines only wait. The protocols woke. It did not begin with an explosion. It did not begin with a fleet. It began with a whisper, a single encrypted transmission broadcast simultaneously across every star system humanity had ever touched. And because the humans had touched so many of them, as traders, as refugees, as the quiet, stubborn species that had somehow crawled across half the galaxy before anyone thought to fear them, the whisper had a great many places to land. In the Council chamber, the first sign was the silence. Not the Council's silence, not the respectful hush of an assembly in order. This was a wrong silence, the silence of 100 screens going dark at once. The silence of alarms that had never once sounded in the history of the Council, because no alarm had ever been needed. Every terminal in the chamber flickered. Every terminal in the chamber died. And then they came back. Not with the Council's data, not with the Council's files, with something else. A single image, repeated on every screen, in every language, in every species' native script. And yet utterly, terrifyingly identical. Earth does not negotiate. Varus's chalice shattered on the marble floor. He did not notice. His eyes were fixed on the screens, on the words that had no business being there, on the impossible truth that his perfect, flawless, never-wrong intelligence had missed. How, he wanted to scream it, how had they reached us? How had they breached the greatest network in known space? The answer was simple. It had never been a breach. It had been an invitation. The humans had not hacked the Council. The humans had built the Council. Every protocol, every channel, every line of the vast intelligence web the Council trusted with its very existence. Humanity had laid it, decade by decade, century by century, with the patience of a species that measures time in generations and grudges in eons. The Council had looked at humanity and seen a primitive, divided, insignificant species. Humanity had looked at the Council and seen a to-do list. The chamber erupted. 71 species, 71 thrones, 71 voices raised in panic and denial, and the first honest fear any of them had felt in 1,000 years. Ships scrambled. Ambassadors screamed. The great and powerful Galactic Council, arbiter of 1,000 worlds, dissolved into chaos in the span of 30 seconds. But Varus, High Chancellor Varus, who had watched a diplomat bleed out on his floor and felt at peace, sat perfectly still because he understood. Not the how, not the tech. He understood the why. The Keystone had fallen, and a keystone, when it falls, does not fall alone. It was never about the diplomat. It was never about the Council or the verdict, or even the extinction order. It was about a promise humanity had made to itself, in the quiet, in the dark, in the centuries when no one was watching. If you touch one of us, anywhere, ever, no matter how far, we will find you, and we will not negotiate. The screens were still glowing, the words were still burning, and somewhere, on a small blue planet light years away, a species that had never once learned to stay down was already waking up. We hadn't started a war, we had kicked a hornet's nest. The Council did not fall that day. That was the part that surprised everyone, including the humans. Oh, it wanted to fall. 71 species, 71 thrones, and for 4 hours, the galaxy watched the greatest power in known space tear itself apart in panic. Fleets firing on shadows, ambassadors fleeing their own seats, the sacred laws of the Council trampled by the very beings who had written them. The universe held its breath, waiting for the collapse. It never came, because the humans did not want a war. They had never wanted a war. What they wanted was something far more terrifying to the Council than fire and ruin. What they wanted was for the Council to understand. And so, when the panic finally subsided, when Varus, trembling, ordered the chamber sealed and the chaos contained, the screens did not go dark, they simply changed. We will not negotiate, the words read, gentle now, patient, almost kind. But we will forgive. This once. The terms were simple, the extinction order was revoked, the diplomat was honored, and a new rule was added to the oldest law book in the galaxy, written in 71 languages and one impossible, untranslatable human phrase. Do not touch the blue planet. Do not wake the giant. And here is the truth. They never told you the secret the Council kept even from itself. The humans did not win because they were stronger. They did not win because they were smarter or faster or more advanced. Any one of the 71 species in that chamber could have crushed Earth 1,000 times over. The humans won because they kept their word. That is the thing the galaxy never understood about us. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We do not have the greatest fleets or the grandest empires, but we are the most dangerous thing in the multiverse. Not because of our weapons, not because of our technology, but because we never, ever give up. Every civilization the Council had ever conquered had eventually bent, had broken, had learned to bow. But humanity had learned something else, something far older, far stranger, far more dangerous. We learned how to wait. And when we make a promise, even a promise we made to ourselves, in the dark, in the quiet, in the centuries when no one was watching, we keep it. That is the whole of it. That is the entire terrifying secret of the human species. If you see a small blue planet, turn around, because if you wake the giant, you will not live to see the dawn. Somewhere, light years away, on a small blue planet, the sun rose over a world that had never once learned to stay down. And in a facility no map would ever admit existed. A single light, the color of memory, the color of a promise, settled back into its patient, endless watch. It was not blinking. It was waiting. For more HFY stories, subscribe to HFY Legends. Every story, a new battle. Every battle, a new dawn. And tell us, if humanity had this kind of power, this kind of patience, this kind of terrible, unwavering resolve, what do you think we would do with it? What would you do? Let us know your theories in the comments below.